With the pervasiveness of social media, it seems that everyone at some point asks me how to do this often. You get bored with the same headshot or just a photo for your avatar for your social channels, whether they be Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn. So here is a very neat technique to use the filter gallery to turn yourself into a cartoon avatar. Under the filter menu, before I run filter gallery, I prefer to do convert for smart filters. That way, if I want to adjust the settings, I could come back in and edit their value font, click OK on this message, and I'll name this layer shape. Now I can choose filter, filter gallery, and I'll just get this oversight can focus on her. The filter gallery has a wide collection of artistic effects you can apply, and you could see each of them by hitting their expense triangle. There are two that work, and he used to create a cartoon-like look. The first will be poster edges, and when I click on poster edges, you get that cartoon look with the deep texture, as if this was hand-drawn, and you can experiment with edge thickness, edge intensity, or posterization to get fewer colors or more colors depending which direction you draft. I usually do this based on my mood that day. And now, to compound this effect and make it look even more cartoon-like, at the bottom of the filter gallery, I get put on a new effect later, and that simply compounded the poster edges. So it's actually running twice, but I will use that kind out the fact that now, when I hit kind out, there I get up much more cartoon-like image. And now I can experiment with a number of levels with edge simplicity to get more detail on her face. I'll tile that down with edge fidelity, and each of these are working together. So once I get these right like it, I could come back to poster edges and start playing a bit more with edge. Get this to get more details back in the mouth, or edge intensity, and again, happy with it here. So when I click OK, now you have a cartoon avatar that you can crop and set to the appropriate size to use as your headshot. Now I wouldn't be finished without showing you another trick to make this look like a comic book. I'm in a grabbed the headshot of me, which has clearly been retouched, and everybody knows I work on Photoshop or teach Photoshop, and this technique will give me a comic book look that I could then hand paint in Sunday's start by taking the Kelly layer and duplicating it by dragging to the new layer icon. I will then name this in Verdict, and going to do image adjustments in Verdict, and is a look other crazy like a negative to begin with, but data layer blending mode, I could turn on color dodge, which actually dodges out the darkest areas that you're not seeing much hearing depending on how much work you do. This may look a little bit different, and depending on what shot you start with, it may look different. That now will determine what you almost can't see into outlines. I'm again that I do filter convert for smart filters, so I can edit the gauzy and blur. I'm going to apply next, and when I do filter convert for smart filters, it flattened the layer mask that I had cut out, and now you can see a little bit more of the textures. My eyelashes, the tip of my nose, my mouth, the jawline, and the hair. Down choose filter, blur, gauzy and blur, and disco type instead. This is a little recipe that I've developed that will help you get that cartoon outline, and this is interesting in and of itself. It's almost like a fluorescent pencil has drawn it. But here's my last step I'll use of threshold adjustment layer. Threshold creates more posterization secant those sharp black outline. And as I drag threshold to the right, everything that's below a certain color level is forced a solid white. Everything above a certain color level is forced to solid black. So I can decide how much of my cheek or nose I want to include that looking a little busy to me, so I'll tile that back down so I just capture a portion of my features. And there we have a cartoon cutout, like you'd see in a comic book. And to finish it off, I could make a new layer called paint, or I could start with the cheeks, and I could begin to paint in each piece. I may go to my paintbrush tool and I'll sample a yellowish skin tone. I'm pretty naturally pale. And then I'll paint in on the cheeks, layer, I'll paint in my face. I could even open the original shots or sample from the original shot. If I hide everything and show that one, I could go to my eyedropper tool and sample a spot from Mike Intones. This is it really, is quite pink. Then I could option click her old click to turn all the other layers back on, click back on skin, and go to my brush tool and just begin to paint this. See paint in each layer in pieces. And then make this very rough and pause the video and do different colors of texture. But just to let you know that I'm going too far, but I won't lose my outline. If I choose Layer Blending Mode Multiplies, it burns that in with the underlying layers. So now I get more the pink just on my skin. And I can begin cropping top layers to get more shading and more textures that I menopause the video now and then resume it. Once I finished painting this a bit more, all right, and magically repacked, if I double-click on Adjustments and double-click on Color, you could see I added a separate layer, the dress, the hair. I even used, on the skin layer, my brush tool with a 10 or 20% opacity of light to do some shading, but I really wanted a very stark drawing. But for every other layer I use the Blending Mode Multiplies, so it burns the black outlines in with my painting. And there we have it, my own hand-painted avatar that we achieved by using layer blending modes, smart filters, and an adjustment layer.